Hello, good morning and good evening. Council of Mortal will start. It's supposed to start now, but probably they're waiting for more viewers. So the main, I asked Eclipse if I can do a live stream because if in case you did not attend today, or some of my viewers, they can like watch the replay via the YouTube or the Twitch record. So that's the main purpose why I did a live stream. So it's anyway, I'm gonna watch it. So at least it's been already been recorded now in my YouTube channel. So of course my goal is just like to write down what was like update. So tomorrow morning on my live stream tomorrow I will like do a update or a refresh what was like discussed today. So for the people who did not manage to attend, and feel free to chat if you see something like if you feel something to say, just feel free to the chat. Then who knows, I might like raise my hand and ask them for an update. So for viewers who cannot join the Discord, at least this will be on YouTube and on the Twitch, and it will be automatically will be recorded. If you want to skip or come back, just go back to my YouTube channel or Twitch and try to watch what have what part did you left. Last time I think there are like around 190 who participate on this one. 190. So let's see like how much they were gonna add more today. I can like show you the quick agenda here. I think the agenda is nope, not this one. Oh, this one. This is the agenda for today. Pack should not be infinite supply. Copper pitch will gonna ask that question. Player info disparity, Agent K will gonna ask that question. And high market fee will be by Finor. Client server status, Flavius. I don't know why. So the arrangement of the order of this one has been voted by the literally by the council. So we had kinds of like a vote. So we will do a voting and which one is like should be prioritized. So this one is like technically being prioritized more. This is not according like the 1 to 1 is this is like the number one. That's not true. It's just like by agenda. I think they saved the best to the last, the sealed mode, probably. And then on the next, so this is the monthly. So next month, this will be like the what will be the topic here next month. By September 21st, something like that range. Direct challenge open, but let's see which one. Probably they will also gonna provide an update on the oh, that's a question. Did you hear something? Oh, his Bathala is already speaking. Let me double check why I cannot hear anything. Oh man.
It takes a lot of effort.
Okay.
There's a lot of iterating and mess, as well as a lot of adjusting as it goes along. But I think that we really have a shot at doing it, and I wanted to talk about some of the things that we've been doing and how we've been using the community feedback to make changes to the way that we do things here at GU. So first off, wanted to talk about how we've been making adjustments to the roadmap based on the community's feedback. We hear your feedback really loud and clear around game modes. Clay and I have been working really hard on refining our plan around how we approach game modes, and that's also led us into a couple of explorations about around lore and around how we think about our card design and our card art, and also and we're going to be sharing those with you pretty shortly, probably within the next couple of weeks. And then the first big thing there, I think, is going to be a daily planner. The other thing that I think we've been hearing from the community is velocity and speed, and making sure that we get you things that you want that will help to make this game the best game that it can be faster. In the last AMA that I did last month, we talked about how we were committed to shipping Daily Play and Earn by the end of August. I'm super happy to announce that the team has been heads down on getting it up and running, and that it will be out by the end of August. And super excited to share that with all of you as we kind of show through actions that we are moving to improve the velocity of how we deliver on our roadmap. In terms of the vision roadmap we shared in July, we talked about moving more into the expanding possibilities phase. A couple of things that we were talking about there were onboarding improvements, content creator programs, daily play and earn, chests, cosmetics, combat logs, new partnerships. And we're continuing to push on those. But one piece that I think is not here that we have been spending a lot of time on is lore. And I think that when I look at the how we think about Web3 games and the current state of the marketplace, there's often a lot of focus on Web3 elements and a lot of focus on Web2 elements, but not really on how those two things blend together. And as a preview of how we're approaching this problem and some of the things that you're going to see later on, we're really thinking more about how making investments in our lore and making investments in the foundation of the IP of our world will actually help us to solve some of the Web3 problems around sustainable economies, around how you think about using tokens, around how you think about having NFT products that resonate with our player base in a way that's consistent with the internal logic of the world. We will have a lot more to share. Part of those things we'll share today. Part of those things we're going to hold back in reserve to share in September. But I have never been more excited about GU, and I'm super excited to get into it. So let's get into it.
Awesome. So we conducted a top 8. Well, it was top 15 from the Council Immortals. So the next following items are the agendas are based on the top of priority based from the council themselves. So our first proposal was packs should not be infinite supply. And this one was going to be owned by Copper Pitch and our lovely Arash, Crypto Guru. So this proposal is proposing that GU puts a time cap on all sets in the future. Dollar amount is impossible, as a whale could buy the entire set in one day, and you don't know how many people will be playing in a few months, so it is impossible to know how much the cap should be. And this is the solution that Copper has proposed. Each set should only be earnable, purchasable for exactly 90 days. This gives everyone plenty of time to earn and buy what they want, and the value won't crash over time. Instead, it will hold at a reasonable level and then even rise towards the end and after, as opposed to having tons of useless, valueless cards that no one has inspiration to earn and buy. Copper, would you like to speak on this? How do I? This is okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so effectively, that kind of sums it up, but the community had a big discussion around it. And Stack 15, who I think is listening, and maybe he'll come up and speak at some point if we need him, because he did a ton of statistics on this, but I'll try and break it down the best I can. Effectively, there's been over $100,000 in packs printed every weekend since MJ launched. And So some people say, well, the solution is, well, forging is going to obviously eat up a lot of those cards. But we also saw the formula for the daily play to earn is not very optimistic in terms of inspiring people to forge. So effectively, if you buy a $4.50 diamond card, if God's tokens cost 40 cents, it would take you 500 days to earn back what you paid for that diamond card. So we have a lot of packs being printed every weekend, and maybe not enough sinks to eat up those cards or to eat up the value to make the token worthwhile. So the question ultimately is, and Arash, if he's here, I'm not sure if he is, to be able to speak to the economy is like with the Forge not looking very promising to inspire people to forge, and with cards being printed at, like I said, over $100,000 per weekend. If we have an influx of 10x people, that's over $1 million in packs a weekend. If we have, that golden ideal of 1 million players in the player base, you're talking about tens of millions of packs being printed every weekend, and not much to do with those extra cards if forging isn't worthwhile. So one of the things people brought up was things that were definitives were kind of, we need start and end dates for when packs go on sale, dates for when balance locks, which obviously for MJ is kind of the exception, as no one wants it to lock when it's not fun or actually balanced. So, not trying to hold MJ to hard and fast balance locks here, but in the future. And then something that we've never had, which is dates for when the sets rotate. We have no idea how rotation works. Will Trial of the Gods suddenly be obsolete in a month, in a year, in 3 years? We don't know. And then some of the things people discussed were reducing printing of packs weekly, since it's over 100,000 per week, like I said, and it would give God's token a sink, because people then could buy packs instead of earning packs as much in the weekend ranked. And perhaps people at the upper echelons who are currently earning so many packs could start earning things like cosmetics instead of packs, like trinkets, boards, emotes, card backs, shiny welcome set cards, stars, flux, anything to offset a large amount of packs that are currently being printed. And then that would also then, with the daily gods tokens, give them something to do. People then could be inspired to buy packs because they're not earning as many packs. Or at least until there's other sinks for god tokens, such as on the marketplace, things like trinkets, boards, emotes, card backs, etc. So basically, this whole entire thing is kind of an economy question. And I know you guys have an economist, and we'd love to hear their thoughts more on all this and how it all works, and how you guys foresee the forge working if the forge is just it's not profitable to forge above meteorite. It seems like that's the ideal, is to just forge to meteorite and then stop. And then the total number of packs being printed per week. So that's the ultimate overall gist of this point.
So if I can get to just, yeah, I'm not quite sure if Arash is an audience to take this, but at a high level, the outcome you're going for here isn't that things lock in 90 days. Ultimately, that's actually irrelevant. That's a solution to a problem, which is all of us want to ensure that the cards and the rewards have value. Like that's the ultimate outcome we're going for, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Just want to make sure that we're aligned on like where we're going. Just want to be clear to you that this is something that we've been talking a lot about internally about just where Mortal Judgment is at with the valuation of cards and things that we need to do on our end to ensure that we get there. Clearly, setting limits is one of the ways that we can approach this. It does bring challenges into the mix. If for any reason we want a little bit more time when we set these hard and fast rules, the flexibility goes away. So like if we were going to say 90 days, that's it, all in forever, then we're coming back to the Council of Morals. We're saying, hey, we really need just a little bit more time to lock in the balance of this before it's tried and true forever. Do we make exceptions on it? When it comes to providing more value, one of the things we have been looking at is weekend ranked. And as you said, there's a lot of value entering into the economy overall. As the player base grows, this gets balanced, but also offset by more people in weekend ranked earning rewards. What we do with weekend ranked is on the table. It's something that Jams is diving into on how we better balance that. Because what we want is, like, our outcome there is on weekend ranked, I open a pack and I get cards XYZ on it, and I am excited that I opened those because I know that those have value on the marketplace. I know I can take those through and sell them on. The other side of that is the fusing thing. Right now, you're absolutely right. Fusing up to meteorite is the primary goal. Beyond that, it's essentially just shine. Like, it is peacocking. It is bragging rights that you can have an all diamond deck, but it doesn't provide any additional utility. One of the things we're going to have to look closely at on that side is how does daily play and earn and shine actually having utility influence that? Does it change anything? Is it worth it for people to go beyond meteorite up the chain? Does that consume more cards out of the economy? How does that influence the overall price? Something that we're going to watch closely. On the set front, some of this too does conflict with other feedback we've gotten from the community. So this is something that I would love your take on Copper Pitch. Of some of the feedback has been on slow down on the big sets. It's one of the things that we're looking at on our end, like with the prologue, doing some more smaller engagement things that will be rarer, more limited run. Would that also scratch the itch potentially with, even if you have a larger set like Mortal Judgment as the backing, with more specific pieces to acquire along the way, so to speak, that are providing some of that chase?
Yeah, I would say that the giving 90 days was misguided on my part. It was more just having a set, like any other trading card game, right? When they launch a set, they basically say, here's the window for this set, and you know when it's going to end, and you know when the next thing is coming. And obviously, this is a smaller, I'll call it an indie type game where you don't really know when the next set is coming per se. So I understand not having like that hard and fast, like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to have the next 3 sets ready every single 90 days. So yeah, I think 90 days in general was also just a little too short. I think people more agreed that maybe something more like 120 days, or like you said, if you have smaller sets, released along the way, or more exciting, engaging things that are happening, then perhaps it just becomes a non-issue entirely. And especially if the scale of at which they're being printed versus their utility, if that's more balanced, I
Yeah.
think it's fine.
So Coverage, let me kind of tell you a little bit about how we're thinking about the problem and expound on some of the points that Clay made, and then I'll talk about some of the concrete things, or at least hint at what some of the concrete things are that we're going to be doing next month in order to explore some of these things, right? So on one hand, we're trying to balance keeping the meta fresh and ensuring that players who are constantly inside the game have something to do. And in the Web 2 world, that was balance and nerfing and changing cards, and we've done some of that over the past, over the past few seasons, right? And one of the things that I think is a flaw with looking to Web 2 for that system is that when people make big investments into a current meta, and then something shifts, the value of those cards that people have made big investments in drops pretty significantly. And so that kind of goes away. And so that's one set of considerations that we're trying to think through, is like, how can we make sure that when people make an investment into a set, that they're still able to retain, or at least, get something back for the value that they put in as they kind of think about that growth. And yes, of course, there's the like, are you good enough and can you earn all the tokens and all that stuff? But we think that there's probably better ways that Web3 enables us to sort of make some of those shifts and some changes. The second thing that I think is we're really kind of trying to think about is, how can we make cards that people are really excited to collect? And how can we recreate cards that, you know, outside of the utility value have value, you know, whether that's like rarity or whether that's, you know, the lore, or whether that's an emotional connection to the card, or whether it's like the art is super cool. So how do we kind of make sure that the things that we're producing aren't just, hey, here's a ton of new cards that like you have to pay attention to from a utility perspective, but cards that have collection value outside of pure utility and that can create interest, and you know, which is both about demand as well as collectability, right, in the broader market. And then I think that the other thing that we're really kind of thinking about is how do we make sure that whatever we're doing, and this goes back to the point that I was making a little bit earlier, is connected to the world of our game and consistent with the internal logic of the lore. And I know for those folks on the call that have been like really following our lore, you know, there's a lot of things that I think we need to do to clarify the rules of the world and how the world works. But we have those rules now internally. We are getting ready to figure out how we start launching and unifying all of the different pieces of lore into that. And I think that using that as a guiding principle, where it's actually Yukos and the world of Yukos that is driving how some of these mechanics and economic decisions work, will then help to make sure that the game and the economy are not two divorced systems that, you know, where there's like people who think about profit and people who think about the game. Instead, the unifying concept is that you have to be immersed into the world of the lore, and see it all as one part of one big world and one big game. So one of the things that the other thing that we are conscious of is that in Web3, as well as in the current state of things, everything changes all the time. So I remember when I first started developing mobile games, originally the plan that people were doing with mobile games was to take ports of what was happening on console and PC games and just transfer them over to mobile. And it wasn't until, you know, and by the way, there were lots and lots of people, and lots of people still, and probably some people on this call, who think that mobile games can't be serious, aren't competitive, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But it actually took a new set of developers who had to kind of leave behind their console and their PC baggage to start imagining new ways of developing mobile games. And you know, I think one of the things that people sometimes forget is that the biggest mobile game in the world, Honor of Kings, is only big in one market, which is China. It accounts for an enormous amount of MAU. It accounts for an enormous amount of revenue, right? And has a whole bunch of different priorities in terms of the features that are truly about mobile capabilities, right? It's like social sharing, like the ability to you know, take it everywhere with you, the ability to, you know, it's really a very much a mobile first game, right? And the distance between those early ports to like an Honor of Kings or a Genshin Impact was a couple of years. So we need to maintain some flexibility in case we figure out, you know, that there are different systems that work. So how are we approaching this problem? And then what are we concretely going to do about it? So in September, we have our season finale. I just checked with marketing to see if what I could say. And they said that I have to use the word season finale to describe what's happening so that I don't make anyone on the call who's working on this campaign angry. And in addition to some of the things that we're doing with Daily Play and Earn, which launches at the end of August, we're also experimenting with a couple of different mechanics specifically around the economy. One thing, without spilling the beans too much, are things that we're calling marquee cards, which have a higher level of, say, lore and art and, you know, sort of like story that's tied around them to sort of anchor the campaign around specific characters that advance the narrative of the world. The second thing that we're thinking about doing and testing is essentially like an a wallet, and I'm not going to spill the beans too much, but that represents the will of Yukos, and that will have agency in this campaign, which ties to the broader story at the end of season finale. And that will give us some interesting data that we think will then help us to understand whether or not this idea of a lore-based economy has legs. If it does have legs, if the community responds positively to it, we have a bunch of other ideas in the wings that we can then double down on in order to kind of make this happen. But I think that, you know, I, for example, have been playing a lot of like light control decks recently. and have spent a lot of time shine fusing them up to gold and buying cards up and getting really invested in that deck. And one of the things that I think about is like, how do I make sure that, if something happens in the balance in the meta, that there's still a way to keep it fresh so that light control doesn't keep staying at the top, but also that when we introduce other sets, that it can still be relevant or still have value as a collector's item without the traditional mechanic of just like nerf it to oblivion and bring something fresh in so everyone has to go in and buy new cards. And I think that we have some interesting ideas in the wings. If those ideas work, there's a couple of product features that we're looking at around reviving, changing the forge, and full disclosure, like there's still some internal debate about those mechanics because some of those decisions that we make will be irreversible. Like, for example, if we allow for deforging and allow the cards to be rebroken back into their original sort of like shadow or meteorite forms or plane forms, right? That eliminates certain categories like say fusing or mirrors that allow for instant ups, right?
So,
Um,
what I
but
understand, they
I
want to
think that
focus
this
on
first
lure.
test that we do in
So lure is like
September,
similar to the
and one of our
MTG.
values here at
Like
Immutable is
they
being able
want
to quickly
to
test and iterate will
make
give us the
sure
data
like
that we need to
it's
know
part
whether
of a
we're on
big
a path that makes
story
sense, and then we can move.
where
And
it can
that's
evolve.
part of the reason why
Once
we're
the
not
story evolve,
committing
new cards
right
will
now
come in,
to
something like that.
when
They're
we're going to
more like a
rotate out
similar
sets,
to the Magic the
because
Gathering.
frankly, I think that being able to give that level of commitment implies that the economy is more mature and the sets and systems are
So
more
if you
mature than
notice
they
in
are.
Magic the
And I
Gathering,
think
they have
both the
like
market, the
the
game,
Brother of War
as well as
lore,
the player base
where
is
they're
still
like two
quite
brothers
immature
fighting each
at this
other,
point,
and they
right?
have
Not
like
immature
set
from
of
a,
spells and set of
immature just in the
artifacts.
sense that there's still a
So they
lot of
want to
room for
create
growth
like
before we
cards
lock
based
and
on the
commit
story,
ourselves into systems
and
that
that's
maybe
what
we
like
don't want
they're
to commit
trying
to,
like
and then have to go back and say, hey,
they're
this
trying to
isn't
build,
something that
because
we want to do.
technically Gods Unchained it's not a
Does that
story.
make sense?
Compare with Hearthstone, they
Yeah.
use the World
Can I
of
go back real
Warcraft
quick to
lore.
the you talked about like value outside of utility for cards. I think something that was being worked on a while ago. I don't know if it still
The
is
Gwen
or
card
is
game
never going to
is
happen.
based
But
on the
something
lore
that we've
of
asked
like
for a long time is parallax art on the
the
cards.
Witcher.
Is
So
that
they
something
want
that
like to
for
have that
higher
one, a
shines
story.
or at least shadow and up or something? Is that something that's on the table to kind of give cards more value outside of just actual gameplay?
Yeah, on that front, like alternate art for cards is something that's still on like my extended roadmap. Not in the short term, though, unfortunately. But being able to, like, even with classic cards like a Demogorgon, for instance, be able to not print more cards into the ecosystem, but take art, combine it in the forge into an alternate art state is something that I would love to see.
Yeah, and just on that point, I want to sort of emphasize that, all things are up for the table, and we have talked about the art portions of it for quite a bit. But those have inherent trade-offs. So another thing that we're exploring, for example, is interoperability of different cards, and can they be used in different things, and maybe in other games. Like, and by the way, I'm not committing to this. In the spirit of sort of transparency to community, I'm sharing some of the things we are exploring, but I'm not committing that this is something that we are going to do. But like, when GOG launches, for example, is there a way that the card have utility inside those experiences? We're in the process now of making plans for, another game that's going to come out under the studio. And so like explicitly starting to think about how the NFTs within the Immutable family can then be used across those different pieces. That I think also points to different ways that we can get players who are playing one game to kind of play into another game, or to create value and utility for the NFTs outside of being single game, single experience products. So, those are things that will take time, and interoperability is quite complex as a topic because I think most game companies are not actually like incentivized to work well among each other. But individual games under a single studio, I think, do have an incentive to work through that. And that I think is one thing that is a key point of exploration for us at this point.
Conscious of time. Thank you so much, Copper. But I do believe we should move to.
I agree. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Yeah, great topic, and one that I expect we're going to be cycling back to in future Council of Mortals many times.
So in short,
Next
seems
up,
like Gene is not
player
interested
info
in like
disparity. So as many would
And
know, this is deck peeking, basically players changing their names to hide, from other players so that you can't keep their decks. Oh,
We
Clips,
can
yeah.
bring up Agent K to speak on this rather than reading
Oh,
it
sure.
out.
We'll do. Or you do.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet.
Agent K, are you here? Actually, it doesn't seem like they are here. Anyone else from the count? Oh, wait, no, they are. Okay. I invite to speak. Thank you. Are you here? Awesome.
Yeah, great. Good morning, everyone. Magandang umaga. Didn't realize that I have to raise my hand to be seen.
Magandang umaga.
Hey, yeah, I'll try to keep it short. The gist of it is what Clay said, mainly about the deck picking part, but that's just one factor in player info disparity. It covers a lot more than that. It's generally about the fact that there's a lot of player information out in public, but it's not in game. So if someone jumps on rank in weekend rank, right, and if the opposing player is more invested, then they would have the inclination to look up their opponent during the match or prior to the match. And I'm also talking about tournaments, right? For community clash tournaments and other community tournaments. The the information out in public is there, but it's not easy to get for the average player. So this can be the deck list, right, from Geodex, and then there's also um, what do you call this? The workshop, right? It was I only found out about probably a month ago that there's like a website that you can just look up and then you can see like the entire workshop and all the names of the decks of the player, and uh, card IDs are also in there. So that information is like huge for tournaments, right? So you'd be able to see what decks the player is playing around with, and the only way around that is for a player to actually build an NCP account, a completely separate account to play with to do play testing, so that he wouldn't be scouted out by the opponent. The other bit is what do you call this? Oh, I lost it because it's like I'm still so sleepy. But the one solution around this, or one suggestion, was like what GU has already mentioned before, was like put it in game, right? Open deck list when you start the game, then you can already see both decks. I mean, personally, I'm not sure about all the ramifications of that, and some people, the community is split during the discussion about the pros and cons about open deck list. One workaround to that was suggested over in the discussion about this whole thing, was that why not make a privacy toggle, right? You know, like if you start up the queue, then you have the option of clicking I want to keep myself private, and then if the opposing player also clicks they want to keep it private, then you won't see any information. Don't see the deck list. You won't see a player ID. You won't see anything like that. But I'm not sure how feasible that is on the technical end. Simply because from the past we could see there were workarounds where I can just, as soon as the match starts, I can just look into the network folder on my computer, since it's all client side, and I can already see the player ID of the player. So all these acrobatics, right, outside of the game, for a player to gain an advantage to win the game, right? So you have some idea of what the opposing players using. It's it's not equal, right? It's not equal in the sense that if I just want to play the game and then I happen to play against another player who is who's willing to go through hoops to gain an advantage against me, then it's not good in the long run. It's not really great for customer experience. But yeah, one option there was to put a privacy toggle. One option is to, like, if you're going to go open deck list, include the player ID. One option is like in my head, it's like this whole bit about transparency, right? Because that was the reason why GU said that we'll just roll out with open deck lists, right? So it's like it's our commitment to transparency. But I think it's two different things when you mention transparency. When the community is expecting transparency from you about what you do, but it's not necessarily about transparency about the information that's available to players when they play the game. That seems like two different things, and then you're conflating it.
Okay, I
So
have no
yeah, so
idea
one
about the
suggestion is
workshop.
privacy
Agent K
toggle. One
mentioned that
suggestion,
you can
there
see
were like
all
split
of the deck
suggestions
lists
about
of
completely
the
doing away with
opponent.
it,
I was
hiding
not aware
everything,
of
and
that.
then the other bit is like completely making
Yeah,
everything
so
available.
at,
Yeah,
at a high level, it sounds like the outcome you're looking for is equality across the player base in terms of information.
basically,
Is that
yeah,
correct?
because it
So
affects
the thing
competitiveness.
is, that is the state that we're in right now. Everyone has an equal opportunity to access it. Some people are doing the work and some not. Some of it that then comes is, how do we make it easier for everyone to go get that information? But let me be clear, right now is a very equal setup. There is nothing stopping anyone from doing everything. It's who wants to put in the effort and not. And ultimately in games, some of the differentiation between the top players and those who are not top players is the amount of effort you want to put in. Now, I'm not saying that just because it's equal, that's good. The other aspect of it is the more you want things to be private, the more we shut down anything around it. So like GU stakes, for instance, and some of the people that are working on setting up like external sites to do things like draft pools and sealed deck, and then using direct challenge to play. The more private you want to make things, the more impossible those things become. Because if you don't want access to information in workshops, we can do that, but that shuts down other developers' ability to sort of have access to players' cards to do some of these other things. Like we can go to an extreme here where nobody has access to match results, means geodex, meta-analysis, and ability to look at weekend rank goes away. Like we can go the full lockdown, but some of the challenges to solve this problem of like ease of access, we kind of have to go to that extreme where all of the data is just internal. We can't share it at all publicly. Otherwise, as soon as we make it available, with any amount of, like with some amount of effort, people can go get it. So some of where I look at it with the challenge that we're faced with is we want people to be able to continue to build around GU. We want people to be able to build tools like GUDEX and analyze the meta, which means things have to be open. So the next question then is, how open is that? So open deck lists, is
Yeah,
it a
if you're gonna
perfect
ask me,
solution?
I
I don't
don't like
necessarily think
the
so.
idea like your
But in a
opponent deck
world where
list.
that
For
data is
example, you know
available,
already that
it's the bar of how
he
easy we
has
make
no
it to
weapon
access
relic remover,
across
and
the
you're
player
gonna take
base.
advantage of it. For me, I
Yeah,
like the
and
idea of like
like open deck
surprises.
lists,
Like
sure.
what do
When
you
it
think
comes
like
to
he
player
has?
IDs, we
Like
are sending that
those
down
one?
already. Making it
That's
available in
supposed to be
client
like the
isn't
thrill there.
something
Like,
that I'm
oh,
necessarily
now
opposed
you
to.
know already. Like, oh,
The
he has
other
no
end of it would
rupture deaths on
be,
turn 6. We can like go
could
full board.
we
That's like I think
somehow
what it
ensure
is.
that the opposing, like the opponent never gets the user ID? There's some complicated things with needing to look up information across right
Yeah,
now that would sort of
I
prevent that. But
I
I guess as
rather
a
have like
kickback,
a
sort of having
full
talked through that,
closure. So
is
to
the
have like a
community
suspense game, like, oh, he's
interested
playing
in
in
going to that
heirloom, but
extreme
what
where we
cards
just
is it?
lock it
Like
down and there is
unknown.
no access
Rather
to
than
information? Because
I
if you want to
already
go
know, oh, he
private,
has Skull
ultimately
Scepter,
that's
he has no
where it
relic
has to go.
remover, he has no AoE in turn
Because as
6. I
difficult
can
as we
like take
make it,
advantage of it, like do
otherwise
a
it's
full
still
board
accessible.
because there's no AoE in
Does
turn
that make
6.
sense?
Yeah, probably the if the decision is to
Oh,
go
he has
around
like
just
this
making
spell
things
in turn
open,
5. He
right?
can like
Then
AO, he
the
can like kill me
how to
once it
make
reaches
things
7
open
mana. So that's
is
like for me, I don't
probably
like it.
should be
If you're gonna ask
communicated
me, I
more
rather like a
openly to
full
everyone.
lockdown.
Because a lot of players have no idea that you can actually look up workshops. A lot of players have no idea that they are being looked up by other players. So there's that, and the fact that a lot of players
I don't know that
are
workshop,
just
to be
working
honest.
around it
I do not
by
know. I
putting
wish I
in
know that
Chinese
one.
characters in their names to come out with blocks. So there's that.
Yeah, same as you dump on
So
them. I rather have surprises. Now I have no idea about that workshop. I will ask
my
Yeah,
Agent
no,
K,
mind has gone
and
frozen
I
on
can like
the
share it to
Chinese
you
character
guys.
block. Some of it is again,
I was not aware that you
that's
can
what
browse
players are
an
doing now.
opponent
But like
entire deck collection. I
for
was not
you,
aware. I
you know,
was
as a
like looking
representative
on
on the
Geodeck,
Council of Mortals,
looking
like
on what he's like
what
playing for the
is the
minute, but knowing the
outcome
workshop, it said
you're
like
looking for
literally the
there? Is it that we
entire deck list.
force
That's different story.
valid characters, and or actually, you know, if we're giving out the
They
user
mentioned the
ID,
word
ultimately whether they have
workshop. I don't
characters or
know
not
what
doesn't
is
really
that.
matter. Some of it again is like the
Yeah,
ease
same
of
as me.
access.
Agent
Flip
K
side of it
found
though
it
is like
last month. He says
having
he found it
a
last month. So
link
I have no idea about that.
in
I'm
the
doing a
client that lets
tournament,
people go look up other people's workshops.
and
I
I'm
don't
not
think that that's
aware that
something that we would do.
I can like figure out like my opponent all
Again,
of his
it's like
deck
this
lists.
line of. Justin, you want to chime in?
Yeah. So the like about the development side, that kind of like throws a whole wrench in it, right? Because like in Web 2, you wouldn't worry
Yeah,
about
but
that
I
You
as a
wanna
thought
player.
like you're planning to surprise your
yeah, but I
opponent
wanna
with your
jump in for just a
deck,
second because I do
and then
think
you
that
figure
there's an
out like your
element of
opponent
like
knows already
of
because of
there's
like of this
the
workshop, right? So
there's
that's
the
like
Web3 component to it,
a
which
big
actually part of the
question, like literally
fundamental
unfair.
like benefits of Web3 or the principles of Web3 is around openness of data, right? Like it's like you can look into people's wallets, you can see what cards they have. You know, that's true. You can see what transactions they've made even outside of the game, right? Like you can see what they bought, how much ETH they've transferred, all of that stuff, right? And there's this whole slew of data that I think we want to stay true to in terms of openness. And I would be very, very hesitant to do things that would limit the ability of players to access one of the fundamental promises of blockchain, which is openness, right? That said, I think that what would be helpful for us is like if the count, like for example, clearly this blocks using like Korean characters or Chinese characters to create blocks is one way that players are going around this ability to be open. And so that might be one of the features that we kind of fix, which is an exploit of the openness, right? Like that's an exploit of using something that we need to sort of prioritize within the game to make sure that that can't be exploited might be a way to do it. I also think though that if people are serious about a game, they go and they use all of the tools. Like when I was playing TFT and I was a pretty serious-ish TFT player, I would just start off by looking at like what Mobalytics articles said were the best comps, and then graduated to like all these like meta TFT tools, the more sophisticated tools, which would help me to kind of up my game. And I know that especially in more mature games, the sophistication of tools and the interest in sophisticated tools goes up as skill level increases. So, my flip question back to the Council of Mortals is that, I think people knowing about these tools, like how can we help to promote that
Yeah,
and
let
how
me
can we
know,
work
guys,
with the
if any one
Council of
of you
Mortals to
knows
let the
that
community know what tools are
that's
available
God
for
Unchained
serious
workshop
players.
that Agent K
Um,
mentioned.
but then also,
I'm
I
like
think
super curious
maybe
there
helping us to sort of
how
prioritize
that it works.
and
I believe
identify
that's
where these
a
bugs and
website.
exploits are that prevent the openness of information from being egalitarian would be also, I think, like the block question, I think is a good one.
Yeah.
By the
So
way, I'm also
I
super
was
conscious of
like,
time. We've only
imagine we're
gotten through
participating in
2 of the 8
tournament and
topics.
your information has
I
been
want
known
to
by your
try to
opponent
get
and you
through
have
some
no
more of them.
idea. I feel like that's unfair.
The clips
yeah,
I want to
Like for example,
bring
I'm
in.
like don't know my
just to close
opponent
that out,
tomorrow. I don't know what
main
his deck
suggestion
is,
is
but
like
I'm
just
like
make clear
guessing,
IDs open,
and then
like in game,
uh,
right? I don't know how you guys are gonna do it, how difficult it might be, but just
yeah, let's
maybe
go
take
for
put
that one
clear
away.
ID up
I
there.
prefer
Yeah.
I'll
lap
take the
then.
Yeah,
note.
for sure. That makes sense.
I'll take the note of that and I'll send it up to the team and with a proposed solution of what we all did. Otherwise, we are going to move onwards to high marketplace fees.
Yeah, PH, if you saw that
And
that
the
workshop, just let us
representative
know. I'm super
was
curious on that one.
Fenner. I'm not 100% sure if they're here today
Oh,
because
I was like
actually
shocked on that one. Well, like that workshop. I'm
there's
so
a lot of people
interested.
in here.
And
Fenner,
I
if you're here,
remember
would you
one
be able
time
to
like
raise your hand?
there was a tournament on starter deck where Fake Mew mentioned that
This was
his opponent
pretty transactional though,
played
right?
a deck
Folks, we can just kind of
played
go
a
through
deck
That
that
works
is
some of
not
the
a
too.
notes.
starter. And he
Yeah, so
complained
just
that
on a
one
super high
live
level,
on
I
a
think that
live
the
stream.
community is
And I
concerned
was
about
so
royalty
curious, like
fees,
how the hell he knows.
5%,
He says,
and then
"Oh, I
4%
have
on
this
top
tool
of
that I
market
can see
fees.
my
And
opponent's
they had a
deck."
proposed
Like,
compromise in
what
terms of the
the
numbers that
heck?
are in place.
That's
So
because it's
this
fake
is a
Neo. It's
question
an
that's top of
8M. I
mind, but
was
I did
like,
want to
oh,
share
maybe
a
he has
couple of
like
numbers so that people can get
part
an
of being an
understanding.
8M. He
I
knows
think that
that
this
one.
really affects high value trades. So 13 weeks, since we launched royalties, actual weekly trade for volume per MAU was something like $9.74 US. Average weekly trade volume per MAU was $6.65. So then the average trade price and the average trade cost to trade a meteor card that cost about $1.37 was 12 cents, and the average trading price of a diamond was about $18.90. Like, part of the reason that we have fees, and I want to be really, really clear about this, is that you don't have to pay for minting, right? You don't have to pay for transfers, and you don't have to pay for gas when you're on L2. So part of it is that we're trying to create a system where we can pay for the cost of the platform while also making sure that these $1.37 trades, $6.65 trades, $9.74 trades are actually possible, just given the fact that in the bull market there were times when you were paying hundreds of dollars for gas, and on average you're paying something like $10-12 for gas. So that's like 100% fee that you would pay to enact a basic transaction, whether that's transferring or buying or purchasing. The other consequence is that the royalties are tied to the staking rewards in terms of what kind of goes back to the community. But that said, I do think that there are places, particularly in high value trades. So anything where there's like above, a couple $100, when you start approaching the trades that are 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 ETH, your Demogorgons, your diamond cards, like those kinds of things, where we do actually want to not have such high fees, right? And we want to kind of keep that under control. And that is an IMX platform priority across the board. So what we're looking at and exploring is seeing whether or not fee caps can be available past a certain dollar amount. We also are looking potentially, or we're looking within Daily Play and Earn, using a mechanism to incentivize usage and trading of higher shine. So if you use a higher shine card, there's lower fees on those trades.
Hello,
So
thank
that,
you
like,
the
the
follow,
higher the card
Jaskill.
is, because
Thank you.
it's really past a certain dollar amount where the gas versus where the L1 gas versus fee percentage really becomes a blocker to people wanting to trade. And so, conscious of that problem, looking at fee caps, looking at incentivized usage and trading of higher shines, but also want to emphasize that part of what's valuable about these fees is that these smaller trades would not be possible if we were on L1 and had to think about gas. And so that's part of what we're trying to think about balancing when we think about the marketplace fees. But that said, totally on board with the idea that on these higher trades, we need to look at it. It's a very small percentage of the trades that go through. Next
Awesome.
topic.
So the next topic, since this is Flavius, it's a short question. We're not going to have him come up here, but client server status. In short, when and how will GU be out of beta?
So the beta question, I think, is in essence like when we feel like we're ready and when we feel like we're out of beta is, when things like the game is more stable, when the meta game systems are improved, when we are able to get these game modes out, and I think when mobile comes out, that's probably going to be when we will be able to announce that we're outside of beta. I will say that having been in like companies where the beta term is used sometimes indefinitely, that there needs to be like, there's a commonality of using the beta term just as a way to sort of like signify a soft launch. But I will also say that working on KU, and I hope the tone of the call that you guys have heard in terms of how we're thinking about the roadmap and how we're thinking about the experiments, is that we still very much are in beta. Right? We're still trying things and solidifying things and trying to figure out to get, to respond to community feedback and be thoughtful about it. And, I think that we need to get some of those things locked, particularly around the economy and the lore, as well as the gameplay and game modes, before we can say like, okay, we're definitely out of beta. That said, I think the soonest possible time when we would be ready to say that we're out of beta is when mobile comes out. And I'm not going to be tricked on this call into committing to a mobile date, but I want you guys to know that we're thinking about it a lot, all the time. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So since we have last 10 minutes, and this is going to be our last number 5th agenda, roadmap transparency. I feel like we can talk about it rather than having Professor F come here, but shout out to Professor F for making this agenda. And Justin, would you be able to provide some feedback on our roadmap transparency and what is GU's top priority?
Yeah, totally. I think I talked a lot about the roadmap and the plans that are coming earlier in the call. We talked about game modes, when we talked about, how we're thinking about the season epilogue, how we're thinking about lore, how we're thinking about the different pieces of the economy. And I also just talked a little bit about mobile, some of the different features that and better cards coming. Um, part of what I understand from this is that people actually want to know like how we're thinking about the roadmap, but then also like how we're communicating about the roadmap. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some updates that maybe I haven't given so far, and then I would totally open from the community in terms of like understanding and responding to how they want to get for future updates, right? So probably I think that, in addition to more concrete terms on sort of like what is actually on the roadmap, we are bringing in more leadership and support and bringing in some key positions. We're thinking about, when I think about top priority in the short term, top priority is making sure that season finale goes well and that we're able to get the data that we need in order to decide whether we're going to commit to some of these bigger features, right? Like especially around the lore economy piece and daily play and earn. Um, I think we've talked about velocity and speed. I hope that the community is seeing that, like we said, we would launch daily play and earn at the end of the month. It's still not the end of the month, but we are on track to launch it at the end of the month. And I'm hoping that that will be a proof point so that the community sees that we are moving faster, right? And that ultimately, we are in a place now where we are like shipping stuff and prioritizing shipping stuff quickly. And I think that that's definitely kind of some of the pieces. The other thing I will tell you guys is that part of the reason that I want to hold on releasing a very long roadmap is one, market conditions are always changing, so sometimes you have to shift.
That's a good
Two, we're still
question.
collecting data
Dump
on
on
certain
them. Like,
things. Three, I
do
mentioned
people
in our
care
last
about the
call
work?
that we're building out a product function.
That's
We
a
have a
funny
VP of
question.
product
And
in place now.
I
We're
might
hiring
agree on
6
you. Like,
product managers to kind of jump in, and we need to have them in place
do we
before we
care
can have a
about the
roadmap. And
story of
confident in sharing
Neferu?
with the community.
Actually, I feel like nobody knows the story,
But
like the entire
just a
Gods
couple of
Unchained
hiring
story.
updates in terms of sort
Like,
of where
what
we are.
was like
Senior
they're
community
trying to fight
manager
for?
coming in at the end of September. Person is coming from a pretty strong Web3 background, so we're excited to bring them on. We have some final interviews in, the marketing side as we kind of think about how we build out our marketing team, which Veronica is
I
in
agree
the
on you.
process of
Like,
doing now.
big story.
Play is actively seeking a creative director. You've talked to some of the top talent in the world as we kind of think about how we kind of bring this on. If you guys know anyone that wants to be the creative director of GU, please let me know. Also hiring for an EP who will work alongside with me over the next couple of cycles so that we can make sure that the team
So I
has
think
strong
Gio
leadership
is
in
trying to
place.
make a good
Full
story.
disclosure there,
So
I am
who
not
knows,
looking
one
for a
day there will be
traditional
a movie
Web2
about it.
EP. I know
And
most
we
of those
players
folks,
will
and
love
I
it,
think they're great,
probably.
but
I
I'm
think
not sure that that's
that's what
exactly
they're
what we
trying to
need. I
do
think we need
because
someone who has a
majority of the
stronger
games
Web3 bent.
started with
So
a
if you know
good lore
someone
and
who
then
loves
it
card
became
games,
movies and it
who's
became a
really good at the Web3
franchise.
stuff, can
I think
manage
that's what they
teams,
want.
would love to kind of hear
Because
from me
currently
and
we
talk
don't
to
really know
folks
the
that we think
story
could
of the
fit into
Gods
that
Unchained,
category.
and they're trying to make it clear to us
And
like
then I
this is
mentioned
the
already the product
story,
pieces, right? Like we are
and
just hiring and
and this is
chasing after
how
product managers. The
will you
first
love
product
the
manager
game.
came
Like
in, who's
we
already
need to
kind of working
love
in on the gameplay side.
Neferus, we need to
His name's
love
Thomas. He is
Orfeo,
coming in
something
from
like
a
that.
very strong mobile games background.
So if
So
we want to
that's
collect
super awesome.
cards, like for example in
And
MTG,
then,
right?
yeah, I think in terms of
The
priorities, talked
storyline there
about
is so
already,
strong that you have a
the season
collection of
finale,
Karn, the
talked
Silver
about,
Golem. You have
getting
multiple
DPM,
Karn. So
daily
I
play
think
and
they're
earn
trying to
hub.
do that one.
And then also
You have
thinking
like
about
multiple
growth.
Neferu
Growth, I
card,
think, is
and you
probably the
want to collect
biggest
that
priority
one.
by far. We need to bring our MAU up and get more
Something
players
like
into the
that.
ecosystem, which
Majority of
makes the
games has
system
their own
healthier for
universe, like the World of
everybody. So
Warcraft,
that's
Diablo.
a really kind
They
of
have like a
important
good
thing that
story,
we are
right? And
working on.
aside being a good
And yeah,
game, they
in
have like
terms
a
of
good
how we're
story. And
thinking about
while you're playing it, you understand,
communication
oh, so
updates,
this
I
is
think
what
one
happened.
solution that was
And
proposed monthly
if there
debrief
will
from
be a new
GU
expansion, you're
leadership.
like so excited.
So
Like in
that's, I
Diablo
think,
4, what will be
what
his
we're starting
next
now and we'll
enemy?
do next week,
What will be the new card?
or next month, and then thinking also about other dev updates, but super open to suggestions from the community and how to get these updates out in a way that people want. One thing that I think was floated was potentially dev videos, so that's also an option. But the idea is coming.
chime into just with in the expanding possibilities part of the roadmap. Our improvements to matchmaking are basically in internal show off stage. So there's been good progress on that front. Some improvements to matchmaking overall, particularly stability of the system and long wanted feature of not requeuing into the same person at the same time. Combat log also up and running internally. Still a lot of polish to put onto it, but adding transparency into just what is happening across the game, we think will help improve player understanding and long-term retention. And continued work on the tutorial is ongoing.
Awesome. So we only have 4 minutes left. I do
Yeah,
not
if you're
believe
gonna
that
ask
we'll be
me,
able to
I like they
highly
want to build
discuss
a
the last
wonderful
3,
story here
which
because
is
that's
higher
literally
utilization
how
of
Magic the
PCR,
Gathering
clear
started,
display of land
how the
losses,
best
and
game
sealed mode.
started.
But
They're having a best story.
if we
I
can
agree
bring
on
this to
that one.
async,
I
since we
agree.
do have
I'm even me.
some answers
That's the
for
main
you
problem
guys,
currently now.
I will see what I can do.
None of the
Otherwise,
GU players,
I
I
wanted to
believe,
thank
know the real
everybody
story
for
about
coming to
this
the
God
Council of
Unchained. Like,
Mortals,
what's the cat
and
on
I
that
have taken in
picture?
everybody's feedback
Like,
on the
we
meeting
might know
and
little,
what we can do in the future.
and
And
we don't care about it,
please
right?
remind
And that's
me
the
of the
problem.
player disparity suggestions so I can have a clear, concise message for the rest of the team. Thank you, everybody.
Real quick question
So
for
for example, me,
the community /
I
council.
want to collect
Obviously, we did some deep dives into the initial topics, and they
like
were kind of
multiple
meaty
legendary
topics.
card of Neferu. Like currently we have one Neferu, right? But who
Does
knows?
the
We might
community have a
have another
preference
Neferu
of
card
do we take the time
and like
to
another
continue to
Neferu
sort of
card
like
with
do the
different
deep
ability
dives,
but
or do we
same name,
start
like
time boxing
literally.
moving
You know, in
forward
Magic the
in
Gathering
future
and in
council
Hearthstone, you
meetings?
can have like
Because the other end, we can have
same
a clips here
legendary
with a
card but
stopwatch
with
being like,
different
this gets
stats
10
different.
minutes
So
and we move
Yeah.
on.
and
Is there
there's
a
a
preference towards one or
story
the
on
other?
it.
I saw a community member said that they enjoyed that one topic got 20 to 30 minutes because it was more in depth and it gave us more information. However, that is something that I will grab from the community. Please let me know, tag me, and let me know your preference.
Sounds like a potential for voting.
Yes.
I don't know who's Demo Gorgon
I
like
see a bunch
in
of
the
Cool.
you
Thank
story.
you,
guys.
Like,
everyone.
is he been
Thank
summoned?
Thanks,
Like,
guys. Thank you
imagine
so
there's a
much.
Demo Gorgon, but
Bye, guys.
in the story, like,
Bye-bye.
is he like a bodyguard of Neferu or he was like one of the spy? So we have literally no idea of those creatures and characters. Like we have no literal. And when I was a kid playing Magic the Gathering, I like the way that when you read the card, there was like a story, a little bit like a text there. Like those story text there, like squee, run into it, something like that. Yeah, it's over. They never finished the 8 questions, so we never heard about the other 3. So the agenda supposed to be this top 8, but it's never been mentioned. We end up in number 5. We never had the higher utilization of the PTR because nobody play PTR. I think that should be a topic like, hey, we have a PTR but nobody plays it. Okay. Another one, clear display of win and loss. Clear display of win and loss. I think this is more on the ranking up. I think we're having issue with ranking. Like we see this broken shard, but we don't know like how many wins do we need like to come up like because of the MMR. It doesn't show literally the MMR there. And another one is the seal mode, like we're all awaited for. Like, hey, are there any update on the new seal like this seal mode? Yeah, I think because of the one topic that's been eaten are the pack by Copper Peach and Agent K. They literally eat majority of the time. Maybe my suggestion is like if someone's will gonna ask question, make it like briefly because what happened is like the one who asked the question, he add more story for I don't know. It should be like brief, so at least there are more answers. What happened is we have more story to tell, but only few to answer. I don't know. Yeah, thank you, Dump on them. Yeah, that's what they're like trying to new. This seal mode is like a new game mode, but seal mode is all the game modes they want to play. So on the next month, I don't know what will be happen, but there's a challenge, direct challenge. The problem with direct challenge, you cannot if you want to practice something, you would type practice. Maybe there should be another button that automatically do that, so you don't get the rank while do practicing. Bug bounty by someone, by Sambam. Lack of feeling of achievement. Community maintenance. First turn advantage. This is like a good topic. Useless card. Yeah, there are lots of useless cards being generated. And yeah, we have like 60 cards, but only 10 are like played. And forging inefficiency. So not enough forging. That's what happened. People stop on, believe it or not, people stop either in meteorite or in shadow. Me, I'm forging shadow. I start with meteorite, but if I don't have enough, I will not forge into shadow. Or if I have enough, I forge into shadow. I think that's it, guys. I will try to do a summary for tomorrow if you will stop by. But I will try to figure out that workshop, guys, and I'll let you know tomorrow if how that workshop works as per Agent K. You can like look up for your entire opponent's deck list, like the entire deck. So I will keep you posted on that. And thank you so much for watching, and see you tomorrow, guys. Bye.
There's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice. I know my limits, you can break me down, but I'll stay till the finish line. And I've been counting minutes for quite some time now, just to see you again. And I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again. We got millions of reasons to let it all go. Hope we're not too broken. I know I'm not always strong, and I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again. There's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all